help me with the PowerPoint arrows to move along. So as we look at prayer today, not saying this in prayer, but some of the scripture that grounded the work is really, you must understand this from James. This is from James, and it's in your handout. You must understand this, my beloved. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, for your anger does not produce God's righteousness. Do not speak evil against one another, brothers and sisters. Whoever speaks evil against another or judges another speaks evil against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver and judge who is able to save and to destroy. So who then are you to judge your neighbor? We spend a lot of time breaking down communication because we're judging. And so as we work today, we hope to suspend judgment and really learn and listen to each other and find out who's in this room. As we begin, I like to know who's in the room. I won't memorize all your names. I get to look at your nice name tags, but I do like to know who's here. And the way we're going to do this is I'm going to ask someone from each church to introduce the other members that are here, and first name is fine. And I had sent you some questions, and some of you may have been able to meet with members of your team beforehand, and if you didn't, that's okay. But introduce your leadership group that's here today, and one word that describes communication in your community, your church community. So what group would like to go first? And this is just our warm-up, so this has to be quick. What group wants to start? Great, thanks.
We're the Hooksit group. This is Kim, Joe, Janai, Kathy in the background. Kathy, say hi. You're the video. There you go. And we're communicating ongoing communication. We initiate it, but we realize that it's ongoing and it's never ever going to end.
Okay. Thank you. Let's keep going. The group up back.
I'm Bill Jones from the First Congregational Church in Manchester. Our word is 50-50. 50-50. Communication is 50% out.
Yeah. Okay.
And I agree with all of that, and I would say focus on how to use all the different words.
Thank you. This.
We're from the Congregational Church of Laconia. This is Tammy, Don, and I'm the Associate Pastor Paula. And I think our word is exploring. We're trying to learn how to communicate through media and stuff, so we're exploring new ways.
I'm Leslie. This is Rick and Bill. We're from the First Parish Church in Dover. And our word was challenging. So we're going to change it, even though I didn't communicate with them. I'm going to change it to multi-factor. There's so many ways to communicate.
Okay.
I'm David, South Newberry Union Church, and with me today is Kira and Deb, and not with us is Roberta, who's ill. And I would say our word is inconsistent.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I'm Ed Coons, and I'm sitting with Mary. and Andrea, who are members of the Harvard Foundational Church. I was going to say sporadic, but I've only been there 4 months, so I turned to both of them who've been longer-term members, and their word was improving.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, maybe we're exploring and working at it, because
Right,
there are places and there are not places.
right, right.
I'm Pam, and I'm with the Newfields Community Church, and Pastor Holly's here, and Mary Jo. And our word is mixed results.
Mhm.
Okay. We're from Long Meadow Congregational Church in Auburn, which is next to Hooksett. A lot of people don't know where Auburn is. And we have Pastor Ruth and Cindy and my wife Linda and myself. I'm Dave. And we met this morning and talked about this over breakfast. And I think something that we've been careful of at church, and we'll try to keep doing it a little bit more as far as communications, to be proactive.
Mm. Thank you. We got everybody. So today, our learning objectives are, he's doing double duty. We don't have a clicker, so he's doing double duty, which I appreciate. The learning objectives for today is really to understand the importance of communication in our communities and to learn the impact of what's happening in the world. Sometimes we think we're in a bubble and we're really not. There's so much that's going on in the world, and people are responding based on what's happening in the world. And on a good day, that can be really positive, and on a not so great day, then it can be pretty discouraging. And so when you meet each other throughout those days, you're coming at it from different perspectives. We really want to understand the impact of social media on communication today. There are many ways that people are using social media, positive and not so positive, but that has expanded and influenced how we're communicating. You'll have an opportunity to reflect on your own style of communicating, and part of that will be surprising, and part of that will be, now I know that's who I am. You know, am I going to change? You may not change, but you can step into a different behavior and try it out. Gail already challenged you to try something out. We're going to build on that a little. And then you're going to have a time to get together with people that you came with today to create a vision for what you want for communicating. Right here, you have somebody new and a different perspective. So what is it you want to create, and how do you go about that? So we're going to be covering a lot of ground today. So the guidelines for today are really to listen for understanding. You will have lots of opportunity where we'll be sharing, where we'll be dialoguing, and I really want you to be able to listen to both the spoken word and the unspoken word. And we'll have opportunities to practice this. Want you to be willing to participate, non-judgmental, be open to learning. We all have things that we can learn in life. And this moment, this day that we have together, is the only moments we have for today. And it's an opportunity to really listen and know who's in the room. What can we learn from each other? And what I say in terms of confidential, we are taping this and it's being streamed and it's out there in terms of my presentation. You will have an opportunity, though, to get into some conversations, to get into partnerships with people. And that's where the confidentiality comes in, because you're not just going to be sitting with your community. You'll be matched up with somebody else. And if somebody is open and willing and maybe even vulnerable to share a story with you and you listen, I'm asking that you hold that confidential. What happens here is the time that we have. And if you go back to your churches and say, boy, I met that person from that Harvard church, you wouldn't believe what they said. They're a mess. The intent is to learn today. So confidentiality in that context is very important as we're working together. Can everybody hold to these for the day? Is there anything that you look up there and you say, ugh, when I see that, I just gag. I couldn't hold to that. Everybody can hold to that. And the other thing is to have fun today. If we don't have fun throughout the day, if we're not willing to laugh a little bit about ourselves, knowing that I started with my turtleneck inside out, and I admitted it to all of you, you have to have fun along the way. If not, why are we all here? So, as we begin, I'm going to ask you to work at your tables. And some of you, it's a larger, I want you to combine and have the conversation, not just within your community, but this is your full table. And I want to ask you, why is this topic so important? Why was it part of this leadership program? What is happening in the world today that is creating assumptions that many people are acting on? Whether that is global warming and the messages there, whether that is, I don't want to get into politics, but whatever is happening in terms of our understanding of the impact of a shutdown, what is happening in the world, and people are creating assumptions that many are acting on. And what happens when we respond to those assumptions that may or may not be true, but that's how we operate. Then I want you to also, how is social media, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, I didn't list them all, impacted communication? So what I'm going to ask you to do is spend time at your tables, have somebody scribe, and then I'll have each table report out. And you have a good 15 minutes. I'll wander around, see how you're doing. But you have a good 15 to 20 minutes to really explore this. All right, any questions? Okay. Room starts going up and then it kind of bounces off the ceiling and, disperses. It's good energy and it's good interaction and a lot around communication. So why is this important? Why you're sitting here, this is the topic, why is it important? Just throw out some of your comments. Yeah. Right messages heard. What else? Why is it important?
Well, communication is fundamental and prerequisite to engagement. If people don't know what's going on, how can they participate in what's going on?
Okay.
To kind of piggyback on that, we talked about how communication supports the concept that we're all invited to participate in helping decisions, and it lets people know that they're actors and feedback.
the women's conference this year, which I was part of the planning for a while until personal life took a different track and I had to step away, but it was a seat at the table and really coming together and being open. What else? Anything else in terms of why this topic is important?
To redeem the quality of truth.
Hmm.
I think it helps people feel that they're connected, just like we all are connected here today.
Tim?
Communication being so global with so many perceptions, we were talking about the need to be gentle with people who may have a different perspective or perception, so that there can be, both sides can come away with some kind of learning.
You all do know that when you get to a flip chart, you automatically spell things wrong. That's one of the rules of communicating as a facilitator. Anybody else?
Another thing is just to allow people the freedom to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was a reminder that communication is often 90% of it is nonverbal and how you say things. So that was why I think it's important to remember that in our communication.
Mm-hmm. So what's happening in the world? What's happening in the world that's creating assumptions that people are reacting to, responding to?
Might be a long response. We're inundated with voices of all kinds via the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets confusing and overstimulating, and then you begin to wonder what is the truth or what's fact.
Mm-hmm.
Because fact and truth are not always the same thing.
Okay.
You can't get the straight news. You get opinion from people that are supposed to be newscasters.
Okay. What else is happening? People are responding.
I think we identified fear mongering is more powerful today.
Okay.
I just say too much. There's too much happening. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't keep up.
Which is why I put the topic of this is sorting through the noise.
A lot of the communication that we receive is one way. We don't get a chance to ask questions.
And then if you do ask questions, it's considered, because you can't always understand inflection, then it's considered combative. And then if you're now getting into an argument, and really you're just curious, wanting to know that response, but you can't do that, especially on question number 4 with social media, because nuances are not always understood.
So and we had one more.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about how confirmation bias, we can end up living in kind of an echo chamber, and that creates assumptions that everybody else thinks like we do.
So say the beginning part of what you said again.
Confirmation bias. So we
Okay.
have to agree with things that agree with us. And so we can live in this mediated world where everybody we know are the people who agree with us.
Right. It's kind of like, right. And one more up back. Mm-hmm.
I recently learned that social justice is now a charge. term, politically, where I don't feel like it was when I was in teachers. And so even words that used to be commonly understood as Christian values are now, you know, kind of dangerous territory.
Right. So with all this going on in the world, what's happening in our communities? What's the impact?
Anxiety.
Hmm.
Lack of trust.
Lack of trust?
Divisiveness.
What is it?
Divisiveness. Maybe overreaction.
Avoid communication.
What else? What else is the impact in our communities?
Being oversaturated.
Mm-hmm.
Church is desired to be a place of retreat from the mess. So don't bring that stuff in here. Don't talk about those children at the border. I've come here because I'm full of, I need a place that I don't have to deal with all that stuff.
Right. Right.
I actually had a parishioner leave because someone prayed for children at the border. And she said,
Mm.
I have too much on my plate to be dealing with those problems in church.
Right.
And I thought, well, I hear that's
Right.
me. That's me.
Right. 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 Let's add the layer of social media. And what's the impact of social media in terms of communications? How has it shifted the world we live in?
I think that one would be, as a general statement first, that, you know, because there's the barrier, you're alone behind your keyboard and people just react rather than thoughtfully respond to things. And that opinion is presented as fact. And I was sharing with our group, within the last 48 hours, we had something happen within our church that started a social media firestorm when it's nothing. But because, and I don't know if you want me to summarize what it is or not, but it's been interesting, is that the church owns a parcel of land. And I'm just trying to, like every church, look at, you know, budget and how do we use our resources, et cetera. And everybody knows there's like around 20 acres over there. But so we made the decision to survey it to see what we exactly had. And so it started out with a question of someone who is a neighbor, doesn't go to the church, who says, does anyone know why the church property on Wilson's Crossing is being surveyed?
We can't hear back here.
I'm sorry. The church is surveying some land across the street to determine what to do with it. And somebody asked, does anyone know why there's surveyors? And so that just started a storm with, you know, somebody saying the church owns that land and they're making a determination of what to do with it, to please don't tell me they're building yet another road with more houses. Next person, I'm sure this has to do with money issues, to think they could have put a cell tower in the church steeple back when cell carriers were trying to find out this area. I'm sure that would have been a decent location. Well, it's not. We've talked to 2 cell carriers. We've already looked into that. This person doesn't go to the church.
Right.
Then lots of sad faces start showing up. And then, you know, new development of $500,000 homes, I assume, which it's not.
Should be.
They're probably, and then somebody's trying to calm down, saying they're probably looking into repaving and expanding the parking lot. A little calmer kind of thing. Because we did repave.
Right.
I thought the land was owned by the children of Auburn to ensure it could never be sold or developed. I don't know where that one came from. And it just goes,
Right.
it goes on and on and on.
You know, that is just and thank you for sharing that, because that is just a wonderful example of how one piece.
Right, because we voted to survey with, as I said, there's roughly 20 acres. The thought is, well, we need to know what it is before we make any decisions, and then look at the possibility of selling 1 2-acre lot.
But you are going to do a water slide on it, right? Yeah.
Multi-million-dollar home.
Right, right,
roads,
right,
you know,
right.
And then they started attacking, I didn't go into it, but then they started attacking somebody, well, don't you know, and I don't want to say the person's name, but because there's a developer in town, don't you know that they want to change off? It's like, this person doesn't go to the church, this person has nothing to do with this.
And my nephew lives in Auburn, so I'm going to let him know right away. The water park will be built, and with his kids, so that we can just send it all out for the children, right? Because he has 3 children. I want, All right. So, anything else around social media and the impact?
So the other thing that, in relationship to that, is that people, instead of calling
Right,
the source,
right.
speculation goes out
Yeah.
and nobody knows the answer
Right.
and they all have an opinion.
Right.
Right.
And that,
Right.
the thing that social media has lost for us is the picking up the phone and saying, hey, I saw you guys were surveying, what's going on? Or going down to the town offices and saying, are they gonna build a water park down at the,
Right. Right.
So, it's gonna come before the planning board at some point, so
Right.
calm down.
Right.
Right. We had a couple more comments here.
I think, social media communications are less likely to offer grace. More likely to assume bad intent on the part of the person, and automatically jump there. I'm gonna give you a step back, say what's really going on.
Right. 2 more comments, and we're going to move on. What was it?
Conversation of the course, something you would not normally say to a person or otherwise.
Yeah.
You get fairly rude and complimentary and not well thought out at all.
Right.
Yeah, lack of filter on responses. Instead of just scrolling through and having your own opinion.
And I think that everybody
I
else.
don't want to discount all the negative stuff, but I'm using Facebook to tell people that worship is canceled tomorrow because of the storm.
Right.
Yeah.
And I use Facebook so that my mother can see her great grandchild. I mean, I think that it cuts both ways.
Right.
The judicious use of it both personally and congregationally is something that needs to be discussed and
Right.
held. I mean, part of the problem is that when you have a friend who's posting stuff on social media that it's like, oh, there she goes again. How do you have a direct
Right.
communication with her to say, I really don't need to know every time you stub your toe.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. So as we look at all this, communication has become more complex today. The amount of information that we are getting, most individuals are having a difficult time to process. So it has 2 impacts. You either shut down or you engage. And who do you engage with? Oftentimes, it's with somebody who may think the same way that you do, or may want the same things. And we're not going to solve it all today. That's going to be in the next session held by Judy, who's with us today, who will be doing the topic of conflict. But the whole social media, the amount of information that we get, the instantaneous information that we get about anything at any time going on in the world. I don't know if any of you have heard about the ice disk that has been created. Okay? There is an ice disk that has formed in Westbrook, Maine, on the Presumpscot River. And I have pictures, if any of you would like to see them, because it's my photography, I have to run out and capture it. But I received a note from someone in England that had heard about the ice disk and how rare it is in Westbrook, Maine. I mean, the fact that we just have a global audience, and I actually knew the person, so that, you know, but oftentimes being a photographer and how I put things out there, I can hear from anybody all over the world. But that's how quick it can be. And the ice formed because it started flowing, and I won't get into all the technical side of it. But then the ice disk stopped moving. And all the ducks and seagulls were spinning on the ice disk. It was going really well. And then it stopped. And the excitement was, which made me think of the water park, was the merry-go-round. So someone got in their kayak and decided to get it moving again. And the media applauded them without looking at how dangerous. Didn't move into that fear. That didn't happen. But the conversation that went on and has been going on for over 2 weeks, and how far-reaching. We've had people that have come, and other stations are now putting it out there. There is one that forms all the time in Baxter Park, State Park. It's a natural phenomenon. It's just that it just happened in Westbrook, Maine. But that's how complex the world is. It's on Instagram. It's everywhere out there, and can be very positive because it can be really a moment of learning. Why did it form? How did it form? Why in Westbrook, Maine? And it can also go the other way.
A couple years ago, our church does what I consider a small project of knitting or crocheting scarves and then leaving them in the park for anybody who wants to take them. This is something we've been,
Oh,
we
nice,
did in-
nice.
We've been doing for a number of years.
Yeah,
The local WMUR, which is the local news station, came out, did a nice little feel-good piece, 50-second little thing. But because it was days before the election, it was less than a week before the election, and when there was no good news on, this thing went viral. I was getting telephone calls from Hong Kong, from London, from reporters. API picked it up, CNN picked it up, all this kind of stuff, and there I was. And, you know, at first it was all nice, you know, oh, that's nice, tell us about it, you know, we want to, and so like there's articles about me in Hong Kong, I find it very funny. But then it started to get negative. Then I got a call from a reporter who's saying that they called the local homeless shelter in Manchester, where we
Right.
did, and
Right.
said, well, what do you think about these people doing it? And, you know, the director said something, well, you know, well, that's nice. I mean, it's
Right.
not, it really isn't a huge thing. We're not solving homelessness, you know. He said, well, it's nice, like, you know, I hope they're doing other things. He said, would you have a response to him who says that you're not doing enough? I'm like, no.
right,
So I have
right,
a perfectly fine relationship with them. We do lots
Right.
of stuff for them, and I'm not gonna
Right.
get sucked into that.
right,
But people want an
Right.
angle on
Right.
things when it really is just a little tiny feel-good
Right.
story. you
right.
know?
So, Rebecca's my new assistant, and I appreciate it. So communication in its very simplest and form, and remember, we're starting very broad, and then we're going to keep narrowing it down, and then we're going to go back out a little bit to your specific communities. But communication in its simplest form is just when a message gets sent and how the receiver receives it. Very simple. If life were that simple, right? Communication, though, today is a lot more complex than the simple verbal exchange. So many times it's not picking up the phone or finding out more. And that it is really around how we speak, the language we use, our body language, the tone of our voice. I just wish you wouldn't sit there. What are you doing? Versus, it's so nice that you sat so close and you didn't avoid being up front. Not like you had a choice. I think the others in your group sat down. But sometimes those complications arise because how we send that message out and how it gets received gets packaged very differently today. All of the emojis, I can't keep up with all the new ones. And communication is really involves just taking the time to listen, ask clarifying questions, paraphrasing what you heard, and having an exchange, which to me is a gift today. To really be able to have the time to sit with someone and listen to what they have is a gift. I think it's one of the greatest gifts we can give anyone today. So we're going to watch a film. And I didn't send this out before because I wanted us to experience this film as a community today. And so before we turn the film on, because it is, it's about 40 minutes, and then we'll break for lunch after that, because I really want us to take this in. What I'd like you to do is stand, stretch, use the facilities, get more snacks, coffee, whatever you need, and we'll tee this up. So I want to share that I'm part of what I consider a virtual group. And it is a group that has met over the years in a place, same time, same place every single week. But a new group was starting, and people's lives as they are, we just could not find a time to really have face-to-face sessions together to just discuss. The name of the group is really about learning from our spiritual elders. And so this is one of the wonderful ways I think that Facebook can be used. The group is a closed Facebook group, and it gets opened up every once in a while. And films are put out there, discussions are put out there, poems are put out there. We lost Mary Oliver this week, who just I revere and just so wonderful and influenced my life. But one of the films that we looked at was the film that you're about to see. And when you look at this film and really take it in, then it takes away all of the complexity of communication. And it really takes it to a point of just pure love. So I felt it was really important to be part of this communication, because what we want to build on is understanding and how we really look at our own communities and ourselves. So the film will be about 45 minutes. I'm going to take off my speaker so it can be easier to record. So give us 1 minute while we so sit back and enjoy.
There it goes finally.
L'Arche is the name for a number of communities of and the developmentally disadvantaged. It was founded over 50 years ago, in 1964, by Canadian Jean Vanier. The universally celebrated L'Arche movement has now grown to 50 communities worldwide, but it began in northwestern France, in the village of Trolley-Bray. Compiègne, near the River Oise. I first met Jean Vanier when I arrived with camera and crew at L'Arche, English translation, the Ark, in the fall of 1967, less than 3 years after its founding. We knew that L'Arche was a radically new approach to helping the severely handicapped. Incarceration of many of them in asylums that resembled prisons. The dungeon-like conditions which prevailed at the time of L'Arche's founding were designed to keep the afflicted out of sight and out of the lives of the rest of the population. These radical reforms were led by Jean Vanier, the son of the then Governor General of Canada and World War I hero, Georges Vanier. What we found was remarkable, given how new L'Arche was. The stress was on community, on creating an environment to which the handicapped could belong, and which belonged to them. A striking part of every L'Arche community is the entertainment provided by its members. And almost invariably that involves music. We asked the musicians presently at Trolley-Bray to provide music for this new film. They assembled in the chapel.
It began without knowing what it was. There was an element of justice, of struggle for justice, of truth. You can't treat people like this.
The plight of all these boys in general, you find that either they just stay at home and do nothing and unhappy, or else they're moved into psychiatric hospitals or into asylums. And in general, they haven't got a place to where their personality can flower out and where they can be happy. And I just felt that I was called to do something in this particular situation.
Jean Vanier, ex-naval officer, on a summer sabbatical from his teaching post in philosophy at the University of Toronto, was introduced to their plight by Father Thomas, a Dominican priest. At the end of that first summer, Jean Vanier decided to remain at Trolley-Bray, and L'Arche was born. He's still there, more than 50 years later.
The promptings inside, and so I left the Navy. not quite knowing where to go. I was able to find a place in a community near Paris, which was run by a Dominican priest, Father Thomas. And I came knowing lots of things about navy and gunnery and warships. And then I had that bonding with Père Thomas. When he spoke or when he gave talks, it was as if life was flowing through my body. It wasn't my head, but it was something coming through the body. And so it was obvious that in some mysterious way he was my spiritual father. I discovered a world of, that I'd never heard about before. And visiting the small institution where Père Thomas was chaplain, I was just very touched by the men. When I went to visit them, they didn't want money, they wanted friendship. The cry, will you be my friend, will you? I visited an institution which was, I can say, a horrible institution. There were 80 men in this institution, which was built for 40. There was no work. They were closed up behind walls and so on. There was no possibility of leaving. And inside there was a lot of violence and screaming and all this sort of stuff. And so I met there two people, Raphael and Philippe, Raphael Simi, Philippe Seux. So everything sort of fell into place. People with disabilities here, where is their fulfillment? And their fulfillment is in laughter, in joy, in celebration. I mean, laughing together. I mean, there's a sort of blossoming forth of their being. And of course, what has happened for me and for others, I can say that when I started L'Arche, I had been a teacher of philosophy, and I'd been at the community, I'd been left the Navy and all that. So I would say that in some ways I became a child. We began in a dilapidated house. Nobody today would allow anyone. I mean, we didn't even have a toilet in the house. We just had a tap. There was no heating. August, you don't need it. We were able to arrange things in the garden. I mean, everything came together. A yearning that I'd always had to live in community, a yearning to live with people who are broken, a yearning to be close to Père Thomas. So things came together, and you know it is right. Fundamental principles. The first, that each person is precious. Each person. Whatever their culture, whatever their religion, whatever their disabilities, whatever it is, that each person is precious. The second principle is you can only discover you're precious if somebody sees you as precious. if you're treated as being no good, you become convinced that you're no good. And then you can move into either depression or a form of hatred of self. So the principle of relationship, because human beings, we begin in relationship. You are beautiful. You are the most beautiful child in the world. I mean, there's that sense that only you are the most beautiful. And so a child begins life after the comfortable time in the womb of the mother, begins life with that knowledge that you are loved. You are my beloved son, you are my beloved daughter, in whom I'm so happy. Now, if a child does not receive that, and let's face it, there are children, they're in the streets, they've been abandoned, they've been hurt, they've been abused, they've been all the horrible things. When the weakest person is abused, well, then something shifts within him or within her. And then he has to prove as a baby that I'm going to do this on my own, because he doesn't know that he is loved. So if you don't know you're loved, then you have to prove that I am someone, and it'll then be cultivating the systems of power, of hurting, of oppressing others, and so on. So everything begins with relationship. So there's something very particular, not just living together, but a meeting. And meeting is a sort of something happens, as if we have been bonded together in a moment of communion, mutual presence. And what I think we've become much clearer is the difference between communication and presence. We're in a world of a lot of communication, internet, Facebook, God knows what, because I don't know about them. But people can be communicating all the time through words. But they're frightened of presence, to be with. And to be with is a mutual recognition of you giving me something and I'm giving you something. And so behind a meeting, there is a humility. To meet is not to do things for people. It's not to tell people what to do. It's somewhere. What is the eternal within me meets the eternal in you. What is infinite in me is infinite in you. There's a meeting between. So meeting implies a transformation. So people can come to do good. People can come to struggle for justice. But then you discover something. That you discover as you meet the person, something has happened. Something has been reborn or be born within me. That I discover that to be a human being is not just a struggle to do good, not just a struggle for peace, it's to live peace. And that's something very different. So the fundamental principles is that you are precious, but to discover your preciousness, you need somebody not only just says it, but lives it. And I would say lives it through touch. Oui, je tiens le caresseur.
Pardon.
Oui, c'est ça. C'est caresseur. Magnificat, Magnificat anima mea, Domino Magnificat. It's about holding hands. And people don't get lost if there are enough people who hold their hands.
Alors Gaël, ils sont pas là, ils ont été au travail.
Ce qu'il y a de faible dans le monde, voilà ce que Dieu a choisi. Ce qu'il y a de fou dans le monde, voilà ce que Dieu a choisi.
The population of every large community is made up of two elements: the developmentally handicapped and the assistants who have come to help them. Some of the assistants leave after a year or two, while others remain for a lifetime. Almost all share the conviction that they have received more than they have given.
You see, the big thing about L'Arche is that we are grounded into reality. We don't have ideas. I mean, well, we need a few ideas, but the most important is reality. And reality is you, that person with disabilities. What does that person who cannot speak, who cannot walk, and so on, what does that person need to be fulfilled, to grow, and so on? So discovering of what love is about, but grounded on reality. So the whole mystery of L'Arche is how to harmonize reality, experience, and the Word of God, a vision of humaneness, to bring together the idea, which should be a vision and not just an idea, bringing together reality and the idea. Why people come, I would say, has evolved from the discovery of something new and interesting to the discovery that it's a place where I can be welcomed. I may have been hurt or failed an exam or whatever it is, but the revelation is the same. The revelation of somebody who has been hurt doesn't quite know who they are. And they can discover that through their eyes and through their hands and through their flesh, they can give life to people. And this is sort of amazing. They discover that compassion for the person who is broken, who is screaming, and all the rest. But this is changing them. They're discovering who they are.
I felt that I wanted to see what it would be like to really live intensively around other people. And I suppose particularly with people with a learning difficulty of different kinds. When I first came, I felt a little bit out of place. When I first came for a lunch at the Foyer de l'Arche, and then a guy called Olivier who has Down syndrome, came up to me at the end of the meal and took me by the hand and showed me around and helped me to take part in the activities of the place. And instantly I kind of felt I had my place, I felt welcome there. And I think that moment really was key for me. And it was something that I guess, an experience that I've come back to repeatedly over the period that I've been here. You know, this idea of feeling that you have a place where you're not everything, but you're something.
People can come broken because they want another world. They want a world which is more human and where each person can find their place. But they're lost in a world where the only objective is normality and success and economy and power and control. So many young people are lost. And so they can glide towards love through Google or other ways and then discover something incredibly new. That these people who are at the bottom of the scale of humanity, that they're revealing something fundamental. So we always come back to the same thing, that assistants come not knowing why, hoping for something, but then discover something completely different.
You know, I was part of something bigger than myself, and that's really what I think I've got back from being in the community. Then, of course, there's the individual friendships that you make.
They discover that it's difficult, they don't know how to relate, they don't know how to listen. They know how to tell people what to do, they're trained in telling people, but they're not got that idea of listening and bringing people to birth. So they go through a period here, and many of those future priests, I mean, it was a sort of almost a shock for them, because they've been trained in the head, but to discover that to be a human being, and therefore to be a Christian, is to know how to listen to people and to reveal to people, not to seek to convert them, but to reveal to them that they are precious. It's the place of covenant, where they're in a mysterious way bonded together with people with disabilities who have lived rejection, who have been hurt, who have hurt their families, who've been put in institutions. And it's the place of covenant, a place of bonding, a place of presence. And as they come to the place of presence, they discover who they are. And to be at home is to be well in their body, to be at home in themselves, be well in a community. So they will stay if they discover home. But that doesn't mean to say it's always easy, because there are also pressures coming from family. Their brothers and sisters are earning more money. Their family don't want them to be in L'Arche, because after all the studies you did, to be in a place like that, living with people like that.
Ce qu'il y a de fou dans le monde, voilà ce que Dieu a choisi. Ce qu'il y a de faible dans le monde, voilà ce que Dieu a choisi. Il y a de fou dans le monde, voilà ce que Dieu a choisi. Ce qu'il y a de faible dans le monde, voilà ce que Dieu a choisi.
When I began with Raphael and Philippe, this was a small little community, and we were happy there, and it was a place of laughter. I would say when you communicate with people who have certain intellectual disabilities, where you meet is on the realm of the heart and of laughter and fooling around. We began L'Arche as a small outflow from the Catholic Church, if I may use that expression. Père Thomas was a priest of the Catholic Church. And, over the years, there's been a little shift. First of all, the discovery of ecumenism, discovery of the mystery of that we are bonded together more by our love of Jesus, and that religion can become a prison and not a fountain. So, because there's the dangers of closing up. Mine is the only real religion, and the others are no good. There's this tendency of protection, of defense mechanism.
One day, perhaps there would be the need in India for this sort of work, and it might be. Perhaps when I go back, I could do something in this line there. And as far as I can see, I would like to stay in this particular line because, as I said before, it seems to me something that's worthwhile.
When I went to India in 1969, I discovered a whole world of, first of all, Mahatma Gandhi, who was an incredible man, of a vision of what it means to love the enemy. Jesus tells us how to love the enemy, but on a political, social, to love those who are against you, which is to discover in them their treasure, that they are beautiful people, but maybe they've been misguided and so on, and they've become oppressors. So there's something extraordinary that I discovered through Mahatma Gandhi and other leaders in Hinduism. And then this became even clearer later with Muslims. And so there was a slight shift, and it's a sort of mysterious shift that if you haven't lived it, can you really believe it? And here we're touching something. And what is that shift? Is that living with people with severe disabilities, you change. Yes, that we've already said. There's a change, and I discover something about tenderness. So that's important. I would say L'Arche is a school of tenderness. And the icon of tenderness will always be the mother and the child. There's an icon of tenderness with the cheek of the child on the cheek of the mother.
As large communities developed in the Middle East, Asia, and Africa, L'Arche became a model of ecumenism developed not as a matter of policy, but in response to a need.
You at the bottom of the ladder, I discover you're more beautiful than you can imagine. There's a beauty in each person. So I would say the shifts have been continually in this sort of discovery, moving from a community which was really religious to the discovery that the purpose of religion is to love. To love is to accept all, to excuse all, to believe all, and to hope all. That demands a complete change. Their fundamental gift is to celebrate and to laugh and to fool around, and it helps us discover what it means to be human. So it's a gradual transformation. I mean, Jesus says that you can only enter the kingdom if you become like little children. So there's something about the revelation of what it really means to be human. We're together from people from different cultures, religions, handicaps, lack of handicaps, or whatever it is, but we are together, we're celebrating our humanity. But somewhere has been lost that. You don't need whiskey to celebrate. In fact, it doesn't help. What to celebrate is togetherness, being together. So I would say the fundamental thing is much deeper than what we can learn through our heads. It's the gradual revelation of what it means to be human. It's becoming one. It's oneness. It's oneness with people, oneness in oneself, oneness between the spirit and the mind and the heart and our body. It's about coming together into oneness, where people are being stressed and strained for success. Whereas the reality is, get down from your pedestal, have fun. But have fun, you see, somewhere at the heart of the message of Jesus is when you give a meal, don't invite the members of your family. Don't invite your rich neighbors. They might give you some money. Don't invite just your friends, because don't just stay in a clan, a group. But Jesus, when you give a really good meal, invite the poor, the lame, the disabled, and the blind. That's to say, those who are on the margin of society and who've been pushed away. Bring them in, and it's their celebration. Celebration is breaking down the barriers that separate people. Community is not the place of security. community is necessarily the place where there can be divisiveness. Because community is about welcoming difference. So if you have a community where everybody must be like the founder, it's going to very quickly become sectarian. Because everybody must think like the founder. And they are unclear about the mission. So unity comes as we learn to live difference. That means somewhere there has to be a change about what community is about. The big thing is how to harmonize freedom and belonging. And it's not always easy, because belonging very quickly, you can stifle freedom. You must be like this instead of being yourself. And too much freedom, then it's anguish, conflict. So how to harmonize freedom and belonging. That means clarity in mission. And for us, our strength is that our mission is clear. It is that people with disabilities are precious and important and are called to grow and to grow in freedom. So to accept that the other is different, but then finding what is the mission of the family, mission of the children, but the vision that we might have in family of working for a world where there's more peace and more love. And so clarity in the mission. And as I say for Lash, clarity in working together. I mean, there must be something where together we really believe that every person in the community is important. The people who does the sweeping, the cook, and that somewhere we must be people who are yearning for unity. And that unity is all of them learning how to work together, how to listen to each other. So I would say that our strength in L'Arche is the clarity of the mission.
Tes pensées sont au-delà de nos pensées. Ta miséricorde nous conduit. Tant que Dieu pour nous dans nos journées.
Say the regrets. I mean, life has been for me a gradual consciousness of growth to love, which means, there were many times when I wasn't present enough to people. There's been a gradual learning, also moments of discovery of myself, the violence that is in me, reality, because to be human is to have anguish, to be human is to have violence. The whole thing is to learning that it is there and admitting it, and the gradual, in the degree one can, to let it be transformed, that our attitudes are not ones of rejection, but attitudes of listening. So, I mean, there's been the whole process of learning and listening to people. Because obviously with L'Arche growing, it became something where we were in movement, traveling to India, and then the community starting in Haiti and Latin America. I mean, there was a sort of movement, and I'd even say a certain excitement. The big question was, how to keep our unity. Where is our unity? 120 communities with Japan, Philippines, United States, England, and all the rest. And he started a movement or a question about identity. Who are we? Somewhere there's been the loss of the preciousness of life. So I think that L'Arche is something much bigger. It's so small, and yet it's so extraordinary, because it's about the plan for humanity.
We will pause, take some time for lunch, for dialogue. You can spend some time just reflecting on your reactions and pulling this back to the simplest form of communication. But we will pick it up after lunch, so don't feel like you have to have that as your lunchtime topic. There was a lot there. A lot of precious moments. So I have about 20 past 12. We'll take a half hour for lunch and resume our communication at 10 minutes of 1. So this afternoon, we're going to look at just talking about the film a little bit and then moving into an exercise. And then we're going to take it from there and look at more individual styles for communicating So we're going to go back into our heads a little bit. And then towards the very end, no yawning yet. Did you eat those carbs for lunch? Yeah, I caught her. It only takes one to start. And then we'll end up at the end of the day with you taking the different pieces from the day and creating a vision for communication and building community within your own community setting. So a lot to cover. I do promise that we will get out of here on time. So for any concerns that the snow will start early, I don't think we've heard that. I think we're still good. It's still cold out. I did walk outside. So just thinking about the film, what's your reaction to the film? And what can we really hold on to today for our own communities? What can we learn? We talked about a lot of different pieces this morning in terms of what's impacting communication. What's our takeaway? What can we hold on to? Ruth.
I think the idea of making people feel valued, and I think that if people feel heard and valued, even if you can't come to an agreement, and Dave, you were mentioning this in our discussions earlier this morning, that if people feel that they've been heard and are valued, that even if you disagree, you can have real communication. Even if you don't come to a consensus, the conversation can continue.
Yes.
And so I think, I don't know, other people here were preached on, the baptism of Christ, and you are my beloved. That was, a message from last week. And I think that the more we can feel beloved, the more better we can communicate.
Right. Others.
The theme that he kept returning to that really resonated with me is clarity of the mission.
Mm-hmm. Who are you and what are you trying to do?
I was going to say also clarity of mission, but I really thought it was lovely to hear harmonize, freedom, and belonging.
Mm-hmm.
Harmony seemed to come up a few times.
Right. What else? Other reactions?
Breaking down the borders that separate people.
Mm.
I liked what he said about touch.
Mm. Those hugs. When I watch the film, and I've watched it several times, but those hugs, just genuine hugs.
Well, the cradling too.
Yes.
So people that were absolutely unable to communicate.
Right.
And to hold them and have them feel another human being and the warmth.
Yes. Respect.
One of the things that I've been trying to grapple with is just this whole question of why do we have church? What distinguishes us from other really good nonprofit organizations? And one of the things that I wrote down is religion must be a fountain, not a prison to keep others out. I love that.
Mm-hmm. What was the other piece that he added to that? Right. You have to be seen. We are all precious, but you don't know that until you're seen.
We really have a message to give, and the truth is that God is the answer. God's word is the answer. The truth, we have the truth in God's word, and the theme is love. He gives value. It's his love story.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the answer is in giving out God's word and living that love as God loved us.
Giving God's word, really making part of who we are, here and there. Yes, that laughter. It was so simple a message. Have fun, laugh.
I just love the infectiousness of it. As you made a big point about the clarity of the mission, but the mission itself is an infectious mission spread out just naturally.
He did admit a little bit too, that as it spread, it became a little difficult. He had to keep going back to say, we can't lose sight of that. Even though we're in Japan or we're in India, we can't lose sight of what we're doing here.
Just the reminder is that the purpose of religion is to love.
So if we take and clear away all the complexity of communication today, everything that gets layered on top of layer, and we peel back the onion, so to say, it's love, and how do we share and show and really have people feel and be seen as precious. And as I said earlier, communication is the gift. And how we give that through love, through connecting, through really seeing somebody.
I agree with everything everyone said. And I wish that he had touched a little bit on boundaries.
Yes.
And how to do this.
Yes.
Because I think that some of the layers of communication are really important. And like thinking about how people are interpreting a touch. I mean, you guys all know this. I'm not saying anything revolutionary, but yeah, I would like it to be so simple. Yet it feels harder in practice.
Right. Right. The world we live in today. So we're going to do an exercise. And I want everybody to stand. I don't know what the numbers exactly, so we might end up with one group of 3. I didn't count, and I know we've lost a couple people. But I want you to move around the room and find someone that you do not know really well. You may have seen them here. But go and find a partner. Stand, and then I'll let you know what we're going to do. Go ahead. Musical chairs, musical standing.
There's no one else.
All right, has everybody found someone who doesn't have a partner? Oh.
Well, I don't know.
We can switch. You wanna switch?
Yeah, I'll go with
Yeah.
one of them.
So I can't.
Okay, I'll go with an Auburn person.
Yeah.
That's okay if you two. Yes, you can do 3 people.
You guys. We know each other.
You know. And
And
that's okay. That, Gail, you go. And Cindy, you can go with either. That's okay. That is, if you do it different. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Group of 3. All right. So this is what I'm asking you to do. Find a couple chairs or you can stand. What I want you to do is just be in silence with that person or persons. Be in silence. And what do you observe? What can you learn? Very quickly, when I had you connect, you used your words. Hi, how are you? What's my name? Now it's total silence. What do you observe about this person? What can you learn? Okay? And I'll let you know, I'll say stop. Just go ahead. If it's easier to grab a couple chairs, you can grab a couple chairs. So what was that like? What was the first piece, the silence? What was that like, reactions?
So for I was with Deborah, and the first part, I noticed like superficial stuff, what she was wearing. She must take good care of herself, like that kind of stuff. And we weren't really, I couldn't really make eye contact. It's like I couldn't get her to look, or if I was I'd look away, or so. It was just strange. And then when you had us take the breath, we came back, and the part that was precious for me is that we made eye contact, and I saw her eyes, and we both smiled. So it was like we finally saw each other. And it was just so interesting. And then we shared at the end that we're both really comfortable sitting in silence because we're both therapists.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting. But that moment at the end was precious because I felt like we saw each other at this. And she said the same thing. She noticed my eye color when we came back.
Right. Nice. It gives me chills. Somebody else. What was that like to be in silence? Anybody?
First it was uncomfortable, and then all of a sudden we're smiling at each other before you told us we could speak. And then it was like we could stop talking. It was no longer uncomfortable, but wonderful.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have a new friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Anybody else? What was it like? Ed?
Well, I found it awkward because the first thing, to echo things we've been taught, I was taught by my mother not to stare at people. And I found that that's the primary way I was trying to observe and relate to Dave with vision.
Yeah. 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 And then when you blinked and looked back, what was that? Because I observed that you were a little bit of struggle that I sensed with you, Ed, in that. So when you blinked and went back, any shift there? Were you able to connect differently?
Well, I had noticed Dave smile, and what I noticed in blinking back was that, which is essentially what I said to him, he projects a countenance through his smile, which I noticed changes his whole face.
Yeah.
Beyond just looking around, the smile itself.
Yeah. Thank you. When in the film, when they would break into laughter, the power of a smile. And you've heard the stories where somebody just tries to go out and smile at someone and give them a hug, and hugs are free today, but that opening, that smile is so important and such a way to connect. All right, anything else?
I was just going to say that as a purpose of being with Bill for a few moments here, and I think what came to me is when we meet someone for the first time, we automatically get a first impression. But it was that silence that allowed me to reflect and let's go a little, I mean, he looked friendly, that's kind of why I went over there. But I got more than that after being in silence with him for a moment or two.
Right. And how often we want to fill the air. Silence can be, if we're not therapists, but being on the flip side of that, you probably don't have a chance to have someone be silent with you that often. So to really be silent. What were some of the observations you made?
Kindness in the eyes.
Nice. Good listener. Other observations?
I thought it was precious how uncomfortable we were.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Real sense of stepping across a normal boundary.
Yeah.
That real discomfort to begin with, and then kind of an opportunity to really get to know somebody on a whole different kind of dimension.
Right. Right. Right.
The uncomfortableness was kind of bonding that with someone. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting how the uncomfortableness changed when you said blink and look back, because now you had permission to do it. Now you're supposed to be doing it.
Right.
Now I can stay because you told me I'm back.
Right. Right. So it shifted it. Us. Yeah.
Each other's face and eyes, and then I this I'm just speaking for
Yeah.
myself. I felt uncomfortable moving away because I'm like, oh my gosh, am I looking at her boobs? Am I looking at, you know what I mean? You know, when I was looking at her necklace and thinking, oh my
Right.
gosh, she's gonna think I'm looking at her boobs.
Right.
You know, and so that kind of stuff. But I think because we knew each other, we could look at each other in the face right away. But then every time I thought, well, I didn't, like Ed said, I didn't want to look like I'm staring. So I wanted to move my eyes around, but everything felt uncomfortable.
Right. Right. Right.
I noticed that after sitting in silence, we knew each one had a story to tell, so we started like asking each other about our stories, and it was a way to kind of acknowledge all of the history and all of the things that we bring to the room just by observing it first, and then wanting to know more.
Nice. So it opened up. It cracked that open.
I thought it was difficult at first, but staring and felt the calmness from Bill.
Yeah. Yeah. So part of our culture, when we meet someone, we have a tendency to ask questions. And, you know, what do you do? Where are you from? You know, what church do you attend? You know, have you been there long? Did you grow up there? That's our Western culture. As a Reiki master and being taught by a Japanese sensei, Japanese teacher, the way of teaching is with very few words. And the Japanese sensei that I learned from, if anybody in the group asked him a question, he would only nod. And there were a lot of Western people in the room. And it was very uncomfortable. And so there was a lot of silence. Because the culture is that you have a knowing inside. You have a knowing inside. So you find the answer is already in you. And it's a matter of bringing it out. And the silence helps that knowing. Then it allows us to also connect. So just a different perspective in terms of how we learn and how we communicate. So we're going to shift gears now, and we're going to do back into our heads, but it's going to be through reflecting of who you are as individuals. And we didn't have you take a formal assessment. There is one, but costs, we wanted to keep costs down. As we do this exercise, you'll be able to know who you are, though. So as we move into different styles, though, we talked about the work that was being done and started in the 1960s, but going back to the early 1900s, and many of you know this, but Carl Jung really started doing a lot of work around personality styles, and that we all do have a different style that we lean into. And within these styles, we have an opportunity to shift into other styles, but there are some primary that's developed at a very young age. Personality styles, it has been determined that most of our personality styles are developed by age 8. And I do a lot of executive coaching and people who, you know, an organization says, we just want you to change the person. Nope, not my gift. I can change and work with them on behaviors that they choose to change, but I'm not going to change their personality. But it's understanding where we come from and then understanding where others come from. So as we look at this, the communication is just one manifestation of our styles. So part of the reason we're going to look at individually is so that we can start looking and reflecting on who am I and what do I need to understand about the person I'm communicating with? What do we have that is similar in styles that we can build on? And where might we have differences, but we also can learn from each other by having those differences. So we're going to look at 4 different styles. And for any of you that would like to go online and actually take this, you can go to HRDQ. I'll send the link to Gail or Rebecca, but I'll send a link out. And there are a lot of different ones that organizations use. Some are called the DISC, some are called PACE, but this is one in particular that looks specifically within communication. And it looks at 4 different styles: the direct style, the spirited style, the considerate style, and the systematic. And within this particular tool, and it's not a test, it's just a tool, it is a person's effort towards assertiveness or the effort to control emotions. So we're either moving in one direction or other, what's comfortable for us and what we lean into. So I'm going to go through each of these. And so it will take me a few minutes to read them. What I want you to do is just to listen and then decide which one really sounds most like you. Now, some of you, when I have the assessment tool that people will take, they'll go, well, that's not me at all. None of them are me. And I'm like, well, you filled out the assessment, not me. So we have honesty today and integrity, and you get to choose. If you don't want to choose what really sounds like you, that's okay too. But we'll go through. I'm going to describe each one of them, both in terms of what is the description of the style and then what's the communication. So, and you do have these in your handout too. So the first one is the direct. And the direct style is the person who's most comfortable getting to the bottom line. They're an individual that can speak forcefully. They're an individual that can maintain the eye contact. And they also will present their position, opinion pretty strongly. They can tend to be decisive. Now, a lot of individuals that are direct, they're idea generators. They like to come up with ideas. And they're like, okay, let's go with this. And all of you may know of somebody who, every time you sit down in a meeting, they're saying, well, why don't we do this, 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 and this? And everybody else is going, whoa, wait a second. We have other stuff going on here. So when we communicate, so just be listening to whether this sounds like you. Communicating with the direct style. Gail, will you push the button, please? When we have to interact with the direct style, it's important that you focus on their goals and objectives. They're down to bottom line. So if you said you were going to have a meeting and this is what you were going to cover, better stay focused. You want to keep the relationship business-like. It's not that they don't care about your personal life and what you did on the weekend. It's just that in the moment, they have a task at hand. So when communicating, it's not about the personal feelings, it's more around the facts. And then it's important to be organized. Ask questions of them directly, they don't mind it. And also communicating, speak at a relatively fast pace. You will lose them if you do not communicate. And then you're all messy and not organized, and what's wrong with you? Better be organized for the direct person. Okay. The next person, and we love Ds. We love Ds. We need Ds. The next one is the spirited style. They like to be persuasive. The spirited style, they're the storytellers. They will get you focused. So if the D comes up with an idea, the D needs to tell it to a spirited person, and that spirited person will be able to sell it. They get the enthusiasm going. They're motivational. They'll work at the fast pace. They build the relationships. And they generate enthusiasm. They like to be with other people. Now, communicating with the spirited style, you have to focus on opinions and inspiring ideas and testimonials. Who else might have shared, done this so we can build on it? Be supportive. Slow down the discussion. Don't slow down the speech per se, but slow down the discussion. Engage in brainstorming and also be upbeat. Allow them to share their ideas. So if the D has the idea and the spirited person buys into it, great. Now the spirited person might want to know first what you did on the weekend. And if the D doesn't pay attention and listen to it, they're not going to communicate real well. So they have to figure out how to negotiate that, because the spirited person wants to know. They want that personal relationship. They need that. Okay? All right, the next one. This is the considerate. This is the person that if the D comes up with the idea, the S is enthusiastic about it, the considerate person is the person that's going to be supportive, wants to make sure everything happens. So the considerate, that individual with that style listens very well. They're a good counselor. They use supportive language. There's a lot of trust building. They value the relationship. They like being part of a team and caring for others. And then they also are reliable. If you say you need a room set up so that everybody can be as engaged as possible, The considerate person is going to make sure they do everything to support what your efforts are. Now, communicating with the considerate person, once again, with the considerate, you have to focus on the relationship. That's important. And be supportive of their feelings. Also, make sure you understand their needs. Don't discount them. Be informal and maintain a relaxed pace. If you start gearing up and you're not giving them time to digest what you're asking them for, perhaps you set up a time to meet with them and you've got this long laundry list and you're trying to cover it in the moment, you're going to lose them. Send them something in advance. Pick up the phone and talk to them in advance so that they have time to digest. And they need time, if they're new in the relationship with you, they need time to build trust. The last group is the systematic. This style, if I look at the 4 different styles, this is the style that will give us the reality check. So if a D comes up with an idea, and I'm simplifying it, but if a D comes up with an idea and the spirited is all gung-ho, and the considerate is trying to make it happen, the systematic person is saying, wait a second, we're moving too fast. We don't have the information that we need, and it's bumping into other things. So this style, they like things presented precisely, and they're going to seek more information. They want you to speak efficiently. Don't be scrambled and unorganized. That's very similar to the D. And they'll make their decisions based on facts. So if you say, I just think we have this parcel of 20 acres and wouldn't it be nice we do something with it someday? That could be a possibility. They're going to be saying, well, what? Give me some facts around this. What are the options? They are the problem solvers, though. You give them some facts, they'll sort it through. And they like the guidelines. They'll also work independently and come back to you with what they have found, with a reality check too. So working with this style, in terms of communication, once again, focus on the relationship, but also have facts, not opinions. Don't be wishy-washy. Don't generalize. They need the information. Make sure that you're thorough and organized, and avoid gimmicks. They won't buy into those. So what if we all just carry balloons into the room? That will make everybody happy. Nope. Why would it make everybody happy? Because if one of those breaks and then they all break, we got trouble. Provide the data when possible. Okay, what the balloons will do is brighten everybody and make it really festive. All right, I could buy into that. And allow time for analysis. All right, so I want you to look at your handout and identify what you lean into most of the time. Choose one. I know some of you will say, nope, none of them are me today. That's okay for another seminar, and that's conflict. And once again, Judy will do that next time. But for this exercise, just choose one that sounds most like you. I'll tell you what we're going to do with it in a minute. So individually, just find what's most like you. All right. Who in the room identifies themselves as a D, that they're direct? Okay. The D's, you head towards that corner of the room. And if you've taken a disc, the D is similar for any of you. So the D's are back there. They're direct. And we like you, D's. All right. Who identifies as spirited? Okay. Spirited group. All right, considerate, supportive, like to make sure things happen. You get that corner. Bye, Bill. And systematic. Over in this, Ruth, you get to stay right there. Okay. This corner. All right, so we look around, makeup of the group. We've got a few D's. We have some spirited. 2 groups here, pretty good size there. All right, this is what I'm going to ask you to do. I'll do my own. Oh, wait. Oh, it's on it. Thank you. She was spirited and helped me before I knew it. Right ahead of me, Gail. All right, in groups with your similar style, and this group you might want to split in 2 because you're a big group. I want you to identify the strengths of your communication style and some possible trouble spots. And then which style are you the most compatible with? Okay, this is for each of you. And what style is more opposite, but what can you appreciate about that style? This is also in your handout, these questions. And how does your style impact the relationships in your community? So there's positives with all. There's a couple trouble spots. All right. So meet in your group. Like I said, this group you might want to split in 2 and find a couple different tables. And you don't have to do this standing up. You can sit in a circle, whatever way. We're going to get back together at 2 o'clock and start reporting out. Any questions? All right, D's, we might move you over here because this group is so big there we won't even be able to see you. Judy, your group's going to be combined with the other group. All right, so do we have everybody from the other room? They all back? Welcome back. I did go visit them. All right, so let's came up with in terms of what might, other styles that might be strengths of your style, and then what other style might be the most compatible, and then what might be the more opposite style, but you can still appreciate. So, which group wants to go first? Want to start with the D's? Yeah, I asked that, but I knew they would. So,
That we are over the idea of people of height, so we positive thing that we need is ideas or vision, and we're very task oriented, so we keep the group moving. As far as trouble spots, we said that sometimes you get to forget your patience or maybe frustrated if you forget to think about the different styles in the group. We thought we were most compatible with Spirited because we like when people got excited about our ideas. And that the considerate group might be the most opposite, but we appreciated them because they were very even tempered. And we thought about the ways that they kind of hold groups together. If we're in a larger group, we needed those considerate people to hold the glue together. How does your style impact your relationships with the community? We said because we were so task oriented, we could get things done. That we could lend imagination and focus and a sense of reliability to the group.
right. So, any groups have questions about the direct group? Nice. Go ahead, Gail.
And this may be out of turn, but I think part of our conversation was how, with the direct group, do we not get intimidated by you? How do we listen to you in a way that doesn't shut us off?
So that's your work.
That-
Right. We have another counseling session for that. No, but the work for you is to understand where they're coming from, but also to be able to put them on pause
Yeah.
so that they don't just come right in and charging, because they can be a little charging because they're ready to do task. So you can say, I need to blink here. I need to blink. Can we blink?
The forceful, speaking forcefully, that sometimes that intimidates us.
Yeah.
In not being able to respond because of the force in which it's
Yeah.
expressed.
But we also clarified that there are aggressive direct speakers and there are assertive direct speakers. And the aggressive ones are the ones that make it difficult to have that conversation. But the assertive ones, we appreciate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Personality type, really, that's the way communication comes across.
Right. Right. So even, just asking, will you pause? If they're coming at too much, will you blink a minute? You can use it with this group because you've been together, but will you blink a minute so that it slows that pace down a little? All right? So you don't have to be in therapy, Gail. I was just teasing.
Our vision and the passion behind it, communicate clearly the why of the task and the heart of the task, that might dissipate some of that.
Yeah.
I also think we talked about the spirited group as sort of a good group to bounce your ideas off of and get feedback, whether it's positive or negative feedback, but that the enthusiasts can help build on each other. So I think that would be a problem if the spirited group shut down, because the direct person would just want you to be more direct about.
Right.
To be more direct.
Right. Right.
Well, I think a lot of us said that felt really comfortable communicating with the direct
Yeah,
group.
yeah,
Because it's like fast paced, like you're clear, we're clear, great.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
We can get things done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get things done.
All right, and with that, spirited group, what did you come up with?
We're so spirited, we didn't appoint anybody.
They just had a good time. Well, what are some strengths of your group?
We like that we could be enthusiastic about something.
Yeah.
And we like brainstorming and working with other people to develop.
Yeah. What might be some trouble spots?
So we talked a little bit about our fast pace being a strength and a weakness, because we can like, and correct me if I'm paraphrasing wrong, but just kind of like push through an idea, and then sometimes it's not working the way you thought it was going to work, or you didn't leave space to really analyze or whatever. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Right.
One thing I didn't actually mention with the group, but the storyteller thing.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
a couple of congregants, of one in particular, who, come on, you gotta get a little background here. Let me, when you were saying this is the same with your husband, but like, I'm a storyteller. I'm gonna tell you the story of what happened and how I got to this decision, and it can drive some people bonkers.
Right.
Now I have a brother who's even more of a storyteller, and I know why it drives people bonkers, because you just want them direct people to get to the point.
Right. Right.
And I know that I can be too ethereal and
Yeah. So what other style is the most compatible?
Well, direct. We sort of like all of them, actually, because we.
Right, they would. They're enthusiastic.
We like direct and systematic, because they're like clear and to the point, but we like the considerate because they've listened to us. They're reliable. And they're reliable.
And also they, I think, make us slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
And like see, you know, they inspire like some patience, meditation on a concept. You know?
Right.
Make us
For me at
pause and-
least.
Right.
Make us pause and think.
Right.
Maybe that's not the best idea.
So you kind of hit around what was the opposite and what you appreciate. What's the impact of the relationships in the communities that you're in?
We bring energy.
Yeah.
Positive energy.
Yeah.
Motivation.
Yeah.
But we can also be wicked annoying because.
Well, we were trying to stay on some of the positives.
The other impact is that you're asking to do something or just that enthusiasm. You know,
Yeah.
the golden retriever in the room and with cats. You're like, that's great.
Yeah, something we talked about.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes spirited people may also be able to define success a little bit differently than a direct group.
Yeah. Yeah. They may focus more on the bottom line of it. You're more on the relationships of it. Right. Could be.
Motivational,
Right. 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 All right. Great. Moving on to consider it. Large groups. So we'll hear from and then have each just add. Yeah. Right.
We realized pretty on, we probably would work well together. And we sincerely care about what happened over the weekend.
Yeah.
We want to know that.
Right.
We might take forever and never get down.
All right. Could take a little long. Yeah. Yeah. Right. That is a piece. So you're very compatible. What are you the opposite? But what can you appreciate? Look at the faces on them. All right, but what do you appreciate about the directs over there? Yeah. Yeah. It's nice to have a short meeting and get to the point. Yeah. What's the impact in your community in terms of the relationships? Your greater community as you go back and look at your style, this style. Yeah. 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 So when you really want to make sure that people are feeling heard, tap into this group to be the listeners. This group may know where you're headed. This group will get people fired up. This group will really listen to see, okay, how are people interpreting this? What are they really hearing? Okay.
To back up to the trouble spots.
Yes.
That highlights something for me, and that is the clarity of vision, which we've been talking about earlier, is not a hallmark of this group.
Right.
Because we understand this group, and we understand this group, and we understand this group.
Right.
It's sort of a sounding board for all different kinds of ideas that come out, but don't tend to be clear on vision of ourselves.
Right.
I would argue against that as well, because I think considerate style is observing the whole and may not articulate it, but may see ways in which the whole, what could change for the whole to cause a shift. So I wouldn't discount the idea generation concept within the considerate group.
I will give you a technique for creating a vision too against your current reality before we leave today, and that may help this group as well, and then you to help them and be supportive. All right, the last group.
We said our strengths were clarity, problem solving. You know, we like to keep things on track and organized. So maybe trying, you know, kind of listening, looking at all the options and trying to figure out what might work the best. That's also one of our weaknesses, that we're not as creative. You know, we tend to not think outside the box as much, and probably could be a little bit more patient. We don't like not having guidelines, which I think kind of goes along with not thinking outside the box so much, and might not be perceived as being as much team players as some of the other groups, because we do work well independently, but it doesn't mean we don't, you know, like to work with teams, but there could be that perception there.
Yeah.
We had a really hard time. We all are obviously are part of, you know, part this, part something else, because we all had very different opinions of what styles we were compatible with and opposite to. So I think we kind of said, all right, well, we'll skip that. So that was we're moving on.
Right.
But there was a pretty varied opinion on that.
Yeah.
Well, systematic slash and which way we're leaning.
Yeah,
Right.
So that was
Being systematic, we could see that.
Right. Right.
So we moved on to
Right. Right.
that was our solved
Right.
solution. Is move on.
You may not have had all the facts.
And how it impacts the community, kind of understand, you know, we recognize that it's really important to understand styles of other groups and
Right.
try to make sure we can, you know, work together, and recognizing that there's strength in the diversity.
Right.
That's really important, and making sure decisions are based, included in factual decisions and not just emotional. But again, sometimes that, you know, that leads to the creative side.
Right.
Facilitators.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any questions on anything we've done?
Are we reflective of how things break down, that there's a small direct group, fairly small spirited, a huge considerate, or whatever, of compassion, whoever you are, And, you know, is that a fair thing?
In terms of an organization, organizations can have a makeup that are all over the page. With that said, though, organizations attract individuals, and your communities can attract individuals that are similar. So you have to kind of keep an eye on that. I just did some work with another nonprofit, 35 people. There was only one direct in the room. Now, what happens with this is a pretty good, we oftentimes have a large group on systematics, and considereds can be the largest groups. When I am doing work, the caution within it is to have that understanding and to look at where's our strength. If we were to just, this whole group continues to work together, where's the strength of this group working together? What's the gap? And how do we make sure that we're making up for the gaps? So right now it's pretty balanced. Of course, that group is the lightest, you know, so that's what you want to do, is kind of say, what's the makeup? The other caution that I have, and I use this, and like I said, you can formally go in, you could have people in your church community taking this. The caution that I have, this is one tool, and it's a way to look at behavior. And because it's behavior, it's in your core personality, but there are behaviors that you can shift. So if all of a sudden, you know, I know that somebody else is a direct and I'm over here, and I start judging them and say, oh, we're not going to get anything done, and I'm making it about that, then that's going to stop communication. I have had organizations take a Myers-Briggs and have their Myers-Briggs label on their name tag. And that can be very damaging. Because if you didn't fit in and you were an outlier, then I've seen gradually that person pushed out. So the intent of using any tool like this is understanding, first of all, what's your own, so that you can have the self-awareness, and then what's the makeup of your group, so that you can have an understanding. When we're in a meeting and it's everybody looks around the table and you all come from the same perspective, do you have the diversity of ideas?
Because you aren't getting that. So Gallup, or maybe somebody else, but there's a book called Know Your Strengths.
Right, right.
And part of that was this movement away from telling your employees they need to work on their weaknesses and having them work on their strengths. And it's the same concept of, when you know different strengths within your group, then you pair people together who are going to work well. Their strengths are going to bounce off of each other. Just as knowing that instead of ostracizing, you link.
Right.
Knowing that these things will work better together. And it goes back to what you earlier said, or what was in that movie about, and it may be like, at this point I can't remember, but about it's no good to be in the same clan. It was him on the movie.
Yes.
It's no good to be in the same clan, because then you don't see what's outside of the clan, and so therefore your mind isn't expanding, your world doesn't grow, and you don't see the other people out there.
Right, right, right. So any other questions? Because we'll do an exercise. Okay. What we're going to do, I'm going to set up the exercise, and then feel free to take a facilities break and get more snacks, or there aren't any more snacks, right? Oh, there's still tons over there. Okay. I'm just too short to see them. Get more snacks or whatever. Size. Gail, I got it. I got it, Gail. I'm just teasing you, you know. All right. I want you to find a new partner. And it can be somebody that's in the group that you're in. It could be, you know, somebody here wants to work with a direct, just find a partner. I have this, describe your community and hopes for 2019. You don't have to do that. Part of the reason I put that up there is I make a suggestion on what you can talk about. And the D's and the spirited, they might be able to roll off a story right off their tongue. This side of the room might need a little bit of time to just think about what they want to talk about. So that was suggestion only. If you would like to talk about, so what did I hear in that film that's really important for my community? If you would like to talk about your own spiritual journey, you can talk about that. The intent of this exercise is to have self-awareness based on the assessment we just did, and to spend some time really listening. And as you're listening, making sure that you have eye contact, that you're asking clarifying questions, that you're paying attention to the person's body language, if they get quiet, if they get emotional. I see you well up. What triggered that? So it's really just in this moment to take the time. Now, there are some important things, couple of important things to avoid. And a couple words that people use over and over, but that can stop our communication. And one of the words is, Tammy, why'd you sit here? Why? I mean, I just need an answer. Why'd you sit there?
It's a vacant seat.
Well, why'd you find a vacant seat? A word why can shut down communication because it puts the person on the defensive. It's so much part of our language. So if you shift that and phrase it in a way, I want to understand more about the situation. Will you share? The other word is the word but. Tammy, I'm really glad you sat there, but next time, would you sit in the back? Yeah. Right. Right. So it's not going to take the communication anywhere. It's not going to engage. It's not going to pull the person in. So trying to avoid those words, really listening, paying attention. So it is 2:25 now. I want you to spread out. The other room has a fireplace. I want you to spread out for this next exercise. Find a partner, spend some time just thinking in terms of what you want to talk about, and then going off and just listening to each other. Making sure that you're both heard. I'm going to ask us to get back together, incorporating the bathroom break and getting snacks, at 2:50. Feel reasonable? It's 2:25 now. So you can take a break. You can spend a few minutes of time. What do I want to talk about? Find your partner first. Take your break, stretch, and then what do you want to talk about? And then connect with that person and listen.
To do all that before.
Yes.
I was like, that's a long bathroom break.
No. No. All right, everybody clear? So find your partner first. Somebody different? Somebody you haven't talked with? So two Ds.
Yeah. You know what, I was not at the end until we started business.
Ah. Yeah.
So he's a forced into
Yeah.
being,
Yeah.
but he's also a considerate.
I'm a recovering considerate.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, come on, then I'll have you back. You want
Sure. No.
here or where would you feel? Well, I can do this.
You can.
Yeah.
You can.
So that you have control. I don't want to
Right.
walk it out.
At the end, you can just say, I have some of my books and hold the book up. Okay. All right. So, how did it go? Anybody willing to share a couple comments? When you really pause and reflect and fully present? What happened? How'd it go? Ed?
So I was with a spirited person. And I always admire spirited persons because I don't experience that as one of my stronger traits. And what I noticed was this spirited person is a lot younger than me and just starting out with a lot less experience. And as I listened to her, I saw myself when I was first starting out, and I experienced the dissonance sometimes between her verbal expression and her body language. And in some of her verbal expression, I was projecting that there was a bit of the unsure sense of myself that I had earlier on.
Yeah.
But her body language just was like overpowering.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
reminder that maybe sometimes we don't have the words,
Right.
but we can communicate something that is very important.
Right. Thank you. Someone else. Go ahead.
I was, we were a group of three, and we all three were from the Spirited group. And what I perceived as we spoke with one another, that the people who were listening to me, and I hope maybe they thought that of me, were spirited listeners, that they were really listening to what I was saying and reacting and interested.
Right.
I like that.
Right. 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 Go ahead.
I also was with somebody, I was thinking about this when we were talking, because I was with somebody who was also a systematic person. And for me, that was very helpful because the pace was something I was comfortable, and therefore I could trust the pace of self-revelation.
Right.
I'm not the most self-revealing person, and found myself revealing more than I anticipated revealing.
Right.
Because I trusted the pace and the person, and kind of the body language was not for me overpowering, and it wasn't digging deeper than I wanted to go.
Right.
And found I went deeper because I didn't feel that, and so it was great.
Nice.
Nice. It was great.
One last, and then I'm going to touch on, we're wrapping up towards 3, right? So I'm just going to be a couple minutes because I want to show you a visioning. I promised I would explain that, and then I'll turn it over to Gail. So one last.
Are you looking at me?
Yes, I was. Yes.
I found it was very comfortable. I wasn't really thinking about what group we were in necessarily.
Yeah.
I was, very interested in what she had to say, and I felt very comfortable and at ease, and it was really nice.
Right. Right. Thank you. So what I want to wrap up with, and then I'll turn it over to Gail, and then any last closing comments, is that oftentimes what I've heard is, we've lost our way, we don't have our vision, we're not clear around that. And I want to just share with you a very a technique to help you a little bit with the visioning. And know that I have questions in there for a slide for you to take back to your own community. But this is the time of year that everybody sets resolutions. And one of the resolutions is always, I am going to find a new job. And then January starts out and they start getting their resume out there and they call a couple people and they get some help. And then February comes, they get back comfortable. And then March comes and then June and they say, geez, I forgot what I was going to do, but I'm still not happy. So one of the ways that when I am doing some visioning work with groups, and this is also part of work from Robert Fritz, who's right here in Vermont, and I have had the privilege to work with. The approach is to say, not I have found a new job, but the approach is to say, I want to be fulfilled. And then, what's current reality? And how do you start taking 2 or 3 steps to move from current reality to your vision? A lot of times I will hear somebody say, I want to lose 10 pounds instead of, I want to be healthy. And current reality is, I might have high blood pressure, whatever it is. So my challenge to you, based on what we did today, is go back to your communities with your smaller group first. What is your vision for communicating within your community? What is the current reality? And what are 1 to 3, not a laundry list, 1 to 3 action items that you can set, that you can start moving? So you start with whatever it is, communicating successfully. Then what's current reality? So the next last PowerPoint is your challenge to go back. I want to thank you for your participation today and wish you great success in moving forward. And with that, I'm going to turn it to Gail.
And I think the first thing we need to do is thank you first to Diane for what she shared with us. That. And before then, I will send you, everybody who is here, the Holy Cow link, and you are going to get the link to the communication, the personality types, the test that you want that. We'd also love your feedback. We've decided not to have, handouts every time, but send to me your feedback, things that worked really well or didn't, and we will try to keep that into consideration. On the 30th, Judy Bush is our presenter, and she was here today, and she's got something we're going to hand out.
Right. I have a one-page, very quick questionnaire. I would love to have you fill it out now, but if you feel you need to get on the road, my address or contact is on the bottom, so you can always scan it and just email it to me too. I don't want a dissertation. I just want quick reactions. I divided them by tables. I look forward to your responses, though, and I think they'll be helpful for me as I frame our next session together. Anybody need more?
So you have something to look forward with Judy in the session.
Thank you.
I think we need to bless each other as we go out. And one of the things that struck me and the movie was the line that said, you can only feel precious when someone else sees you as precious. And so I would like you to turn to the person next to you and say, I see you as precious, and go in peace. So you will be blessed.